Here we'll be working on expansion of compound surds. Now, what are compound surds? Compound surds are surds that has the sum of two or more surds, or difference of two or more surds. For example, when you have root A plus root B, this is a compound surd. Or you have A root B minus C root D, this is a compound surd. Now, how are we to expand compound surd? Now, this is what I'm going to be doing. It still works on multiplication of surds, but here we are going to be expanding, multiplying compound surds. And here is an example. Here, how do we expand a compound surd? Now, this is how you're going to go about it. For example, if you have root A plus root B multiplying root A plus root B. This is just an illustration so we can understand how to expand compound surd. This is how you go about it. Now, if you see my video on expansion of algebra, now you'll be able to understand that perfectly well. You pick the first variable, root A, we multiply the variable in the second bracket first, and that will be root A times root A. You pick root A again, this root A, we go on to multiply the second variable at the second bracket, and you have your root A times root B. Now, then you move to the second variable in the first bracket. This, we multiply the first one here, and you have root B times root A. Now, this also will multiply the second variable. That will be root B times root B. Now, let's pick them one by one to analyze it. Now, this is first one, root A times root A. This is it. Root A times root A will give us this, A times A. And that's what we will have here first, root A times A. Now, you consider the sign. Plus times plus is what? Plus. Now, the second one say root A multiply the second entity. That's root A times B. That will give us what? A times B. That's root A times B plus. Now you come to this second variable here in the first bracket, which is this. Multiply the first one, root B times root A. That will give us B times A plus root B times A. And the last one, this will multiply this, and that's what? B times B. You have plus B times B. Now, let's analyze it. I hope you understand what I'm doing. Now you have A times A is A square plus A times B is root AB plus B times A, we can still call it AB for uniformity, plus B times B, we call it B square. Now, square root of A square is what? Is A plus. Now, root AB plus root AB will give us what? 2 root AB. Root AB plus root AB will give us 2 root AB. Now, plus Square root of b square is what? B. Now you have our final answer to be a plus 2 root ab plus b. Do you understand the first analysis? When you see expansion of compound sort, use this method. This is how you go about it. Now, here is another illustration to explain expansion of compound sort. But here you will notice something, that this contains a surd and a whole number, mixture of a whole number and a surd. Now, this makes it a little bit more complex than the first illustration I gave. Now, how do we go about expanding this? In this case, you still follow the same process I used in my first illustration, and that is the first variable here will multiply the first one here, and that we give. Now here you see that we have a whole number and a surd, a whole number and a surd. Now you multiply the whole numbers first, the integer, you multiply it first, and that's going to give us a times root b times b. Now that's going to be the first thing we are going to get. But now here I make use of negative sign because some persons may have issues with negative sign. Now my first illustration uses positive sign. Now for you to understand how we can expand this, I use negative sign for this illustration. Now is to multiply the first variable with the second one. Then you have the whole number first. But now, before you multiply this, you will see that there's a minus sign before this variable here. Now here you are going to multiply the signs first before you bring them together. Now, there's a positive sign here. This is plus here. Plus times minus is minus. Now you have minus here. Then open a bracket. Then multiply the whole number a times c. That's a times c times the root b times d. Then you have b times d. Are you getting it? Now we are done with the first entity. Now let's go to the second entity. Now you have this to be, you pick up your second one, we multiply this. Now here also you have a negative sign here. There's a positive sign in front of a. Now you multiply the sign first. Minus times plus will give us what? Will give us minus. Now c times a, you come to the whole number, put bracket, c times a, you have c times a root d times b, that's d times b. You close your bracket. This same variable will also multiply this, and that will be, this is negative, and that will be minus times minus will give us what? Minus times minus will be what? Plus. Then you have c times c, the whole number, c times you bring in the root, d times d times d. Now it's equal to, now let's bring them one by one into their proper place. Now this is a, the first one, a times a square, b times b square. Now here you have a square root b square. Now the second one is this. You know, there's a minus, a negative sign here, minus. Now a times c is ac, b times d, bd. Now let's go to the third one. Third one has minus here. You have your minus c times a, you can still call it ac, irrespective of the arrangement. B times d, you can call it bd for uniformity. Now the last one is plus. You put your plus, positive sign. C times c is c square. Then d times d is d square. Now I hope you get what I'm explaining. Now you have your what? A square, square root of b square is what? B. And that you have a square b minus, this is minus AC root BD minus AC root BD. You have 2 AC root BD plus, this is C square, square root of D square is D. That's C square D. Now you have your final answer to be A square B minus 2AC BD plus C square D. This is your final answer. Now, with these two illustrations, you should be able to solve any example on expansion of compound sort. Now, check my next video for examples, solutions to examples or questions of how you can expand compound sort. Thank you.